The Wandering Tavern is 15 layers of corruption, gambling, exotic restaurants, hotels, expansive workstations and buzzing accommodations. Amongst these are 23 unique locations that range from lavish establishments down to the city's seedy underbelly. I've got detailed battle maps of the entire floating metropolis. As the sun sets, shadowy forms seep from dark corners to materialise throughout the Wandering Tavern. Luckily, I was able to collect scathing testimonies from over 30 NPC patrons and staff, and even the lingering spirits of the deceased. The Wandering Tavern, available now at hatdebuilder.com.
Hi, my name's Yasmin and I'm the DM.
Hi, my name is Samantha. I play Elora Greyvale and she is a sorceress from the province of Navalia.
Hi, I'm Ryan. I play Ogvar Shawfort, a goat-herding, mushroom-seeking ranger from Kessig.
Hi, I'm Rick, and I play Otto, a spring sage from Hanweir sworn to the land, wandering the plain and setting wrongs to right with Zersine companion Bojo.
As the gathering of abandoned assets began in earnest, Elora, Esther and Ogvar headed straight for Whistlemires with a view to salvaging as many supplies as possible, all of which would satisfy their needs and offer the ship's chef a feeling of home from home. Combing through the abandoned inn provided a glut of galley supplies, linen and lots of liquor, as well as various pieces of furnishings fit for their flagship. Elora, compelled by her knowledge of Paul's sad plight, to which he seemed oblivious, showed her sentimental side, pursuing a personal need to find an item of importance to return to him from his home. To this end, she located a lovely locket under a pillow in his former bedroom. Meanwhile, across town, Otto busted out his best impression of a bear, and after breaking down a door, he hunter-gathered, harvesting lumber at the harbourmasters' stores in preparation for a spot of shipside DIY, and before long the rest of the team trundled up to lend a helping hand. A slightly sozzled Esther showed up with some partly enjoyed sacramental spirits. Her cart in tow contained prayer books, the altar stone to Avacyn, and copious amounts of candles from the church. Truth be told, nobody seemed too surprised. Ogvar stumbled upon a rather rare and very valuable magical trunk. As the sorceress showed her interest in the item, Orland swiftly showed his petulant and somewhat sour side as he took an instant dislike to it, offering a barrage of abuse. Episode 154. It's a Plunderful Life.
So, you have made your way back to the boat, Otto in your bear form, dragging this big door, which looks like it could fit two people, behind you, piled high with bits and bobs, spare lumber that you've found, and you've pretty much stripped the harbourmasters of any decent lumber that you can find at this point. Obviously having set ahead of Ogvar and Elora while they went to look at Whistlemires, you've had the opportunity to really get that big lumber out of the way and start piling it up. So you are dragging that back. It is heavy, but it is also downhill, so it's a little bit easier for you. And you've got the other items that the others have found, so the non-dimensional trunk, some hammocks, some netting, some paint. It's all piled up on top of this door, all being carried. You make your way back down to the boat, where you've got this rickety old pier with your extendable ladder kind of wedged up against the side of the ship, giving you obviously a ramp and an access route up there. where you meet Esther, who has got this rickety old wheelbarrow that she's found, and it's filled with various bits and bobs from the church. You can see linens, a vast multitude of candles, the altar stone, this symbol of Avacyn, which was cracked. Yes.
Was it a wheelbarrow, a cart? It was a cart.
It's a cart, a wheelbarrow.
Right,
it's like a hand cart, so it might as well be a wheelbarrow.
Cool. Okay.
And yeah, she's got it piled up, and you see some bottles of obviously ceremonial wine, which one does look suspiciously empty. And she's waiting at the docks for you. She greets you, and you spend a little bit of time, I imagine, having a conversation very quickly, and showing each other what you've found. Esther quite happily sloshes the bottle around as you hear it kind of the liquid inside swooshing from side to side and lapping up the walls of the bottle. And this is where you have a bit of a discussion about how to move the items that you've got back up onto the deck of the ship. This had been probably a little bit of a question mark in your head, and it's fairly easily resolved by Ogvar. Ogvar not being with us today, Ogvar has remembered that on the ship you did have a piece of apparatus which would be ideal for lifting lifeboats or small dinghies on and off the side of the ship. In his infinite wisdom and his understanding of the ship and the mechanisms and perhaps a bit more stonemason, he would have seen his parents using lifts similar to lift heavy blocks of stone around. Ogvar's pretty certain that with some time and effort he would be able to jerry-rig and fix this lift, and offers to go and spend some time on the deck of the ship while both of you, Otto, Esther and Elora, go off and do some more looting around Saltstone. So he offers to stay behind there and start fixing things up and start moving things about. And this is where you leave Ogvar. You see him climb back up the ladder, Murdoch flapping quite happily around him, and as you turn away and begin to make your way off the pier, leaving behind all of your items, you can hear the sound of Ogvar beginning to move bits around. You hear the sound of rope coils hitting the floor as he's clearly beginning to work on fixing up this lift and making it into a usable state. So, you are now facing the ruined town. You can see Whistlemires directly ahead of you, this mostly intact building, and the rest of the town lays ahead of you. So you have explored so far the harbourmasters. Esther has explored the church, and Elora and Ogvar explored Whistlemires. So you do have several other areas of important areas of the town left. There's the Lord's Mansion, there's an apothecary, there's the merchants, there's the Seagraph, which is this seaside graveyard, and there is also the craft quarter, which is on the far right hand side. So the bay is this kind of curved shape. It's almost like a croissant or a bean in shape on this town from an aerial view. It's got a curve in the middle, and this is where you've got the boat docked up and you're working on. And everything is pretty much in the middle or to the left, with the exception of this craft quarter, which is clearly a collection of buildings which look to be more industrial in type. They appear to be more kind of textile working. You'd say probably it looks dingy. It looks like craft quarter. It's seen some heavy use. It's seen some smoke and some soot, and it's obviously an area of the town where it's mostly industry. So, looking at this scene in front of you, what are you doing?
Well,
I think with Eric still on board the boat doing studying, and Ogvar now having gone up to try and fix the hoist where the lift for the emergency boat would be, I guess that leaves me and myself and Otto really, and Esther.
And Esther, yeah.
Where do you want to go next, guys? Where should we start? There are a few other places. I mean, we're stripping things out. We found loads of really good stuff. I'm quite hopeful that we find loads more. I'm thinking maybe the Lord's mansion might be more like furniture based. I don't know. Do you want to go and... I don't know, where do you want to go first?
Well, I think that we may as well head over to perhaps the craft quarter, unless you're looking to get some nice posh beds from the Lord's mansion or something. But I'm thinking the craft quarter might be able to find some sailcloth maybe, or some maybe some tar if we're lucky. We might be able to do something with that.
Yeah, sounds good to me. We could try that, certainly. I mean, well...
Unless you've got a better
merchants.
idea, of course.
No, I mean the merchant. Let's go to the craft quarter, see what they've got, and then maybe go do the merchants after that.
Sounds like a plan.
You good, Esther?
Oh, yes, dearie, yes.
Esther, have you had a bit of a tipple? Because that bottle looks a little bit, well, there's a bit missing.
I'm not pished at all, dear.
No, of course you're not. She's going to look at Otto. Smirk.
Yeah. Yeah, not at all.
Good
Okay,
stuff.
let's go then.
And she sloshes the bottle at you as she says this. You'd say that she's probably a little tipsy. She's definitely not impaired. You say she's probably still whip sharp, but she's quite possibly hamming it up a little bit as well to make a point, and just have a little bit of a joke with you. She leaves the bottle behind.
Good choice, Esther. Okay, let's go then. Lead the way, Otto. We'll follow you.
Alright. And Otto, who is of course still in his bear form, will start ambling in the general direction of the craft quarter.
Yeah, so you start making your way towards the far right-hand side of this town, and there isn't so much, you haven't got cobbled ground. This is very much like scrubland with paths worn in, paths of desire worn into it, and very much where the water laps up the shore, you do have this kind of sandy, gritty ground which is interspersed with tufts of thick, bushy, sharp grass. And as you make your way, you step off the side of the pier, this planking which has been overtaken by the grains and bits of grass as obviously time has worn on. And you step forth, heading towards the crafting quarter, your massive bear paws leaving indentations in the sand where the water's washed up over it and left this kind of salty crust. And yeah, you make your way across, leaving a trail of bear prints and 2 small human prints behind you. Making your way over to the craft quarter, as you get closer, you can see that yes, this is most definitely an area of industry. There are a couple of buildings which look like they would have been lived in, but they are quite squalid. They're not particularly well constructed. They don't look like long-term residents. Perhaps maybe the odd kind of, the word's gone, eccentric crafter, you would say, might live in this place. Someone who wants to be very close to their work would live there without really much care for the condition. Obviously it's been worn down over time, but still they're leaning, they are quite shanty buildings. As you make your way into the crafting quarter, you can see a warren of buildings. These buildings are interconnected, there are pathways between them, the buildings are themselves kind of bridged into arches, and you can see all sorts of various crafting tools. You can see a leather worker's, the frames where skins would be strung up still standing or half collapsed. You can see a potter's, the large kind of terracotta coloured pots outside. Some of them have been smashed or broken, contents spilling out. Some are still intact. They look like decent pottery, decent potware. You can see textile workers through broken doors. You can see vast looms looking like the work has been abandoned, still strung up across and held taut by the tension. As you progress deeper in, you see a blacksmith's, the forge long gone dead and cold. And there are other various workshops where you can imagine craft would have once taken place. Areas where it looks like, perhaps goods would have been packed and repacked. And this is most definitely like it would have been a hub of business. You can see the main pathway leading out of it down towards the beaches was once properly kind of boarded over with thick, heavy sleepers. And again, like the planks at the docks, this has been overgrown, sand has blown over it, and it's almost buried now beneath these kind of silvery grains. But yeah, you are in the craft quarter, and you can see there is potential for there to be a lot of resource here. So, what would you like to investigate first?
Well, should we have a look in the leather workers? There's all sorts here, look. There's lots of businesses here, or there were.
Once upon a time.
Yeah.
Is there anything? Are like the doors intact here? Is there potential to do what we did with the other ones and use one as a sled?
So I would say it's pretty easy. Some of the doors have been they've buckled, they've crumbled. You can see where they've almost kind of folded with age in on themselves. Some of the doors remain intact, but the actual area, make me a... I've got my brain stuck on 5e for some reason. Make me a... what are we going to use?
Finding a door check.
Finding a door check. Yeah, you can have a negative 10 to that.
Sled check.
Make me a... Going to say make me a gather information check, but this is a more kind of organic one. Obviously you're not talking to people, but just make me a gather information check, please. To start off with.
Okay, I'll take it. Otto has rolled an 18 plus 2 for 20.
20?
Oh.
Yep.
Dirty 20. Lovely.
And Elora?
Oh, sorry, you were expecting me to as well.
I did say both of you.
Sorry, missed that. Okay. Well, that's a 9 plus a 5 for a 14. So, mediocre.
So both of you, with those rolls, you very much get the clear impression that as the illness swept across this town, basically eradicating the population, save for the few who moved away in time, you get this feeling looking around that people, as they started dying, they didn't care. They left the doors open. They left places empty and barren. There wasn't really anyone there to scavenge anything from around this place, because people were just dying or ill. So you just very much get this impression that it's almost as if one day everyone just disappeared. Things have been left exactly where they are. As you look into buildings, you can see on workbenches the remains of like old sandwiches, you would imagine, or plates of food where people would have been having a lunch break, just left there to rot. And it's exactly like just everyone has disappeared. It's frozen in time almost. And so looking around, yeah, you can definitely find something to put stuff in. I would say you'd actually probably be able to find a cart of some sorts. It's a little wobbly again, probably bigger than the one Esther found in the first place. It's like you'd imagine like a coal cart or something from the blacksmiths, for example. It's quite deep, it's quite wide, and it's quite sturdy. It's well built, which is perhaps why it's survived so long. And yeah, you've got a nice little cart you can start piling stuff into.
That's a great find. The other question then is, in terms of the doorways, obviously on the harbourmasters it was quite a large entrance. With many of these shops, are they going to be large enough to accommodate Otto in his current shape going to and fro?
I would say there would be very few areas you couldn't access. A lot of these shops are very much open front, or they have large hatches or large windows. And I imagine things like the doorway to the pottery place would be quite wide, because quite a few of the products they'd make would be large jars. So I'd say everything in this area is basically built for industry. It's built for barrows and carts to be pushed through the doors. And obviously, as a bear, you are a little more malleable than a barrow or a cart. So you could squeeze through it. Not by much, but you would be able to squeeze through the doorways, or perhaps even with the state of the wood, just kind of knock a doorway over. You're going to fit basically everywhere.
Well, Elora, Esther, what do you think? Do you have a first thought? You said the leather workers, I think?
Yeah, let's just go down the row, start with the leather workers. That seems to be the first one.
Start at the start then.
Yeah, see if anything survived in there. I mean, leather's usually quite good, but tends to need feeding if it dries out, but see what they've got.
Yeah, well,
Okay.
let's have a look then.
So you make your way to the leather workers. And one thing you do notice is that all of these buildings are squat. They are single-storey buildings. There is no need for a second floor in these buildings. They are single-storey. And as you make your way to the leather workers, you walk past a couple of these tanning racks which are empty. One of them has leather strung across it, but the leather is cracked, it is dry, it's almost like it's shrunken, and these points where it's been hooked are it's so shrunken, the gaps in between, it's very kind of stark, these large kind of U shapes where the hooks have stayed in place but the rest of the leather is shrunk in between, it's receded, and you can see that it looks damaged, the colour has faded, and when you look at the back of the leather at the back is very much like a deeper brown than the front, obviously where the sunlight and the seesaw has got to it. It's weathered and worn and it's faded, and you can see that something like that would be no use to you. Walking inside, however, you can both make me a search check, please.
Great, my favourite. That's a flat 15.
15
for Elora.
I'm wondering if we go back and get Ogvar for this. Funny enough, I get a 12 plus 3 for 15 as well.
Okay. As you walk inside, you can see a vast array of workbenches, long, flat trestle tables, which have clearly been scarred and marked. You can see cut marks in it where the leather would have been cut over the tables. You can see a couple of tools stood upright as if someone's just slammed the tool into the table to keep it in place. However, the workshop is fairly empty. You can't see what you would imagine at one point there would have been rolls of leather and leather work being constantly made, items being tailored, being kind of cut out and created. You can't really see any of that. There's not a lot here. You can see tools, this very odd looking tool, which when you expect it, Otto, you can tell it's made of bone, and with a bit more kind of understanding, you'd know that this is a leatherworker's tool. It's a bone tool used to rub down the edges and polish the edges of leather, to make sure that there's no kind of damage or fraying. It's just to tidy things off, and it's a very common tool for a leather worker, that is. But looking at... Yes?
Would Elora, I think she'd be hunting around, see if there's any really strong, decent needles, because they're made from metal, that she would expect some of those perhaps to survive if the salt air hasn't completely corroded them, perhaps.
Okay, Elora, you can make me a separate search check while I continue describing.
Okay.
You can see some scraps of leather, clearly offcuts, which have been tossed onto the floor and kicked under benches, but they are offcuts, they are no use to anyone. Poking around a bit, you do find a bag of... Let's see... a bag of coin amounting to 6 gold in various denominations. And there's not really a lot else here, not a lot that you could use anyways. What was that roll, Elora?
It was a 12.
12. Okay.
Flat 12, yeah.
Flat 12. Yeah, I'd say you rummage around in a couple of the drawers and you might find a little box of needles. Quite a few of them have rusted together, they've fused. You find 2 decent needles. They are big, they are thick needles, so for fine work they wouldn't be good, but if you're doing heavy duty work with heavy duty threads, they would definitely, be useful. But beyond this, you don't really find much else of use. The one thing you do see is you see a very well worn but very well constructed leather apron hanging on a hook. And this is a proper old school leather apron. It's got a big thick strap around the neck, and it has big deep pockets down it. And you can see this is almost like a bodysuit type apron. So it's got straps where you would buckle around the legs as well, and it's got that split, so you've got a lot of mobility in when you're wearing it. You haven't got this big thick heavy leather skirt flapping around. It's a proper leather workers or heavy duty workers apron.
Well, I'm not sure about you, but it looks a bit small for me.
Yeah, but it might be useful. I mean, the thing is, you could fashion that. We've got some needles, we've got some tools. We could fashion that, either make something out of it, or maybe even fashion some kind of armour if something needs it. Just some leather padding.
Well, I'm not much of one for fashion, but maybe you're right. Let's grab these things, grab that tool while we're at it, and.
Yeah, and I found 2 needles, so
well, let's have it.
That are in fairly decent nick. So yeah, we'll have those.
Is Esther? Is Esther staying by the cart, or is she coming with us?
Esther's come with you. She's poking around. She's taking a look. She is opening drawers and looking around, but she too seems to be not finding a lot here.
It's just a thought, worth a try.
Should we move on and try the next one then? See what else we can find?
Well, while we're here, may as well do a good job of it.
Yeah, okay. Right. I suppose go along to the potters. We'll try the potters. Elora's idea here... Actually, no, forget that bit. Yeah, if we try the potters, there might be some decent storage jars. We need some storage jars for food and provisions and things like that in the galley.
Yeah, but...
Yeah, we'll have to stop them from falling over, but,
Yes. Well, maybe we get lucky and find something hidden inside something. You never know.
Yeah. So they'll move down to the potters and start looking at what they can find in the way of useful jars, pots, anything else that might be in there.
Don't mind, yeah, she's just pottering around.
Oh, God. That was bad.
Yeah.
That was so bad.
It's about as far as I could go with pots.
Losing the pot.
It's driving me potty.
God. Okay, so you approach the potters. It is a squat building. Same as all the others, single story. Looks quite sturdy. It's got one very large doorway. It's a bit like a double width doorway. Like it would have had 2 doors if it had doors. The ground about it is tinged this kind of terracotta colour, obviously from where years of clay perhaps being piled up, dust, and another kind of detritus. It's almost stained the ground here a terracotta colour, this deep orangey brown. As you enter into the workshop, you can see several stations at the front where clay has been left half spun. These big blocks of clay have dried out over time. They've hardened and they've cracked, but you can see half-formed jugs, half-formed pots, half-formed bowls, which look as if they were perhaps in the process of being made still. And as you inspect one of these half-formed bowls, it's one side collapsed in and caved in, hardened now. You can actually see fingerprints and indentations from the person who'd been making this pot, where their touch still remains immortalised in the hardened material. The workshop is dusty, as you would expect it to be, and at the back you can see 2 very large oven-like apparatus, obviously for baking and for firing clay. You can see a vast multitude of ready-made pots of all sizes. You can see small ones which you would imagine would be perfect for storing herbs and other bits in. You can see really big ones which are almost the size of your torso, which you can't really fathom what would be stored in there, but clearly something would have been in there. They've got these big thick lids on them, and yeah, there is a vast array of pottery. looking around, you could probably say that you're able to get as many pots as you need, so storage pots this is. There are things like jugs, bowls, plates, and there's not a lot else, really.
Elora will have a look. She'll pick up a few pots and jugs and pick them up and put them down. I think she'd start selecting out. Probably she'd pick up about 10 smaller pots.
Yeah.
That would be suitable for herbs, with perhaps lids if they have them, or
yeah. I mean, you
whatever.
can see they've got some of them have got pottery lids. Some of them have got like cork lids, which have clearly been cut out of some kind of cork-like material.
Okay. Otto, do you want to see if you can find... I've got 10... I'll get 10 of the small ones. If you get sort of 5 of the medium ones, and perhaps we can get a couple of large ones. Just for storage in the galley.
Yeah, not so easy. Okay.
Not the great big giant things, but just, bigger ones. So we've got 3 sizes, maybe.
Just eager not to break them. Hang on a second. So Otto's going to think back to something he's encountered before a very long time ago, and he's going to try something, given that he's got these new abilities and hasn't really explored them. So he is going to, without returning to the form of an old man, he's going to wild shape into something different. His form's going to remain much the same size, but it's going to be much more humanoid in nature. Probably dark green skin with quite long fingers and hands, tusks that stick out from his mouth, and some very, very dark hair. And before you will stand something that I'm guessing Laura might recognise as a troll. Well,
Smelly underpants included.
Yeah, just looking around for a bridge now. Otto's sort of trying to duck his head down a bit so he doesn't bash his head against the ceiling, and maybe quite naturally drop down to maybe all fours a little bit, and quite as delicately as he can, sort of trying to test out the how this new form kind of moves and such. It's nothing he spent time in before. Just try and pick out a few pots and medium-sized pots, and try and move around. He's not quite as strong as a bear, but it's not that far off, and he's just try not to break too much as he's moving through.
Does he smell as bad as a troll, or not?
I imagine they smell a little bit like burning rubber. That's kind of what I've got in my head.
Oh.
So not terribly pleasant.
Okay. Yeah, she's going to wrinkle her nose a bit and go...
Yeah.
You could have picked something a little less smelly.
You're telling me you're not going to turn into a bull in a china shop?
It was so tempting.
It's terrible.
Yeah, okay, so you turn into this big kind of warty green troll form, smelly underwear included. And yeah, you're able to kind of handle things with a bit more delicacy. So you're both able to pick out some pots, some decent pots with decent lids, and yeah, they're sturdy. They're certainly no work of art, but they're functional and strong.
Is there something like a sales area or something like that where they would have people would have bought and sold them?
Let's see. Yeah, I imagine as you go deeper into the warehouse and you approach the kilns at the back, you do approach an area which looks to have, or looks like it would have been like a bit of a sales desk, perhaps where people place their orders. You can see there are several crates which have been obviously sealed up with notes tacked to them. The nail has gone rusty and it's stained the paper. The paper itself has faded and tattered, but you'd imagine that this is a boxed up order. And you can see other things here in this area. So behind this little counter, you can see a cabinet of sorts, like a shelving unit. And on this shelving unit, you can actually see more delicate looking pottery, like it's been thrown for art rather than for functionality. So you can see things like the Innistrad version of a Toby jug, for example. These very charming little little jugs which have got angels made of clay, quite clumsily, but clumsily by design. Angels kind of built into it, and in other kind of creatures. You can see one which both of you make me a religion check, please.
A religion check?
Yes.
Oh, I don't have religion.
Nope, neither do I.
Do you not?
I can make...
Oh, no, I do.
Make
I
me a
lied.
Destru-
I do. I have an 18 plus 4 for 22.
Okay, if
I
you
can make a straight knowledge if you want.
make me a history check if you don't have a religion check.
A history check?
Oh, there isn't a history check. Never mind.
No.
Yeah, so make me a straight wisdom check in that case, please.
Wisdom? Or intelligence?
Intelligence.
Oh, wisdom.
Sorry, no, intelligence. Apologies, that's my fault. Intelligence check.
Yeah, that's a whole 3.
As expected. Okay.
Laura's pretty clueless.
Okay, so
She's not a pottery person.
Yeah. So as your eyes rove over the shelves, Elora, you see this jug and you think, it's another one of these jugs. And you move on, looking at the rest of the jugs there. Otto, your eyes pause on this same jug because you can clearly see, depicted rather clumsily in a caricature fashion on this mug, the form of the current Lunarch, Micaeus.
A mug of Micaeus.
Yes, it's actually a fairly accurate representation. And probably something you would know with a 22 on a religion-based check is that Micaeus is a little bit self-conscious about his nose. It's a little bit bulbous at the tip. And they have captured his bulbous nose in all of its round, pudgy glory in clay.
Wonderful.
Would Otto have said that out loud, Micaeus?
Yeah, maybe.
Elora will back up. What was that?
Just that mug up there. It's
She's going to look
good
up.
likeness, yes?
What about? Good likeness of who?
Oh, what's his face? Micaeus. Never met the fellow.
yes, dear.
Didn't much really want to when
The
I saw
loon-
him going about.
The Lunarch Micaeus.
Oh, yes, dearie, look, it's got his nose.
Well, I've never seen him, but this is the guy that gave Cuin the missive, the task that
Well,
we are
I don't
trying
think
to
that's
do.
him, deary. That's definitely a Toby jug of sort on the shelf. It's
I know
definitely-
that, Esther. I know that, Esther. I'm just saying that. Never mind. Moving on. And she's going to walk off again.
I'll
Okay.
just sort of lift up and wrap it into a sort of pinky as best I can, doesn't it? Well, I'm guessing she's at least partly interested. Maybe she'll want it later.
Okay. So yeah, you take the Toby jug with the likeness of the Lunarch Micaeus. Is there anything else you want to take from this area or want to investigate?
My thinking was if it's an area for commerce, there might be some money kicking around which might let us buy other things from other places. If we need it.
So if you take a bit of a rustle around for some cash, you are going to find what amounts to 58 silver. You'd imagine that some of this pottery was quite expensive, especially for its size and the time it would have taken to make. So yeah, 58 silver is what you find.
Yeah, well, that seems like a decent enough find. I shall quietly tip it into the Micaeus jug and
Yeah,
and
you get this nice
follow
kind of
on.
blip, 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 blip sound.
We'll go chase after Elora jangling on the way.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
No, go for it.
Yeah? She's going to turn round and look over her shoulder.
Little reminder of our visit here.
I like the sound of what's inside it.
Yeah, well, they'll let us get a few extra bits, maybe, hopefully.
No, you're right. Do you want me to drop that in Orland, or...?
Yeah, and he'll just present the whole jug to you, because why not? Keep the whole thing safe.
Fine. Elora will just sort of drop back behind Otto, wait for him to walk away, and she's going to empty the silver out and put it in her pocket for now,
Okay.
And she's going to quietly put the jug down to one side.
Okay. So as you move off, Esther follows behind you. She's got in her hand, she's picked up a mug for herself. And the mug that she's picked up for herself is a caricature of Bishop Gerhardt. It is very clearly a caricature of Bishop Gerhardt. She's found it on a shelf. It wouldn't be odd for it to be here, seeing as Selhoff isn't that far away, and obviously Gerhardt's been in his position for quite a while. But it is a very accurate representation, down to his massively bushy eyebrows, which very much take up the majority of the mug. And as she approaches, she goes, "Oh, pop these in, Orland, dearie." And as Orland opens his flap up, she pops in the mug, which is the caricature of Gerhardt, and the mug, which is the caricature of Micaeus, which she has very helpfully picked up for you. "I think you forgot this one, dearie. You put it down, and here we go." And she puts it into Orland.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, yeah, thanks, Esther. That's brilliant.
You should really stay off the booze, dearie. It makes you quite forgetful.
She's just going to laugh. Oh, dear. Great.
Okay.
Right, well, I think that just covers this one. Should we go and...
Yep. Now, what's next? What's around the corner?
I think there was a blacksmith's forge, and I saw a textile workers as well.
Save the best for last. Go look at the textiles first.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. As you make your way...
Lead on.
As you make your way towards this textile workshop, Otto, your big troll form lumbering along, you come to the building. It looks like it was once well kept and tidy and clean, and you'd imagine that with obviously the materials they're handling, they'd want quite a clean working space, because the fabric would have stained easily. Outside you can see several large wooden vats, which would have been made of, like a cask, they would have been made of wooden slats tightly bound with metal rings. And some of these, the metal rings have popped off and fallen to the ground, the wood slats have fallen out, rendering them obviously more than useless at this point. Some still remain partially intact, but you can see that these are big vats which you would expect would have been used for dye, to dye fabric. And you can see along the side of this, and even tucked around the back of this building, long lines made of old cord that you imagine would have been where the linen is washed and hung. You can see various other bits like mangles and other big kind of shallow tubs, where you very much get the impression that these big tubs, it's 10 foot across. It is a big tub. And you can imagine they would have put all of the fabric in there, and they would have very much been a case of, hike up the skirts and stamp on it to wash it. Basically, it's a big washing tub. As you make your way inside, you can see this building is long, and there are several large looms. These big contraptions with their big frames over the top. Fabric still stretched open, waiting for a shuttle to be thrown along between the weave, essentially. And you can see at some points the fabric has snapped, these half-woven things, and they looked like they were once beautiful. They've now faded, but you can imagine the work and the effort that would have gone into producing these was quite something. You can both make me a search check as you begin to poke around the textile workshop.
That's a 17, a flat 17 for Elora.
Flat 17.
And Otto has a 2 on the dice, so it doesn't find very much, even with the +2 from his skill.
Okay. So as you start poking around, Otto, you are fascinated in your big troll body. You haven't got a lot of room to move here, but you are absolutely fascinated by these looms. They are a mechanical work of beauty, and just looking at the patterns that they would have woven is very fascinating to you. Elora, as you look around, you can see a variety of items ripe for the taking. As you pour through some of the drawers, you can see needles, boxes of needles, thin ones, thick ones. There's a needle for every occasion.
Yeah.
And yeah, you can 100% take those needles. You can see a couple of pots of ink hanging around where you'd imagine they'd have drawn out designs or patterns or written notes. And as you push open a back door, you find a large warehouse. I say large, it's reasonably sized. It's not massive, it's not sprawling, but you can certainly fit quite a few bolts in there. And as you open it up, you can see bolts of fabric, almost in a pristine condition. They might be faded a little, but they're still perfectly good. And there are hardy materials, there are canvas-like materials, there are cotton-type materials, which you imagine clothes would have been made of. And you can even see the odd, from where you're stood, you can see silk, you can see like a thick wool blend, some quite rare fabrics, which have been hidden away, they've been sequestered away in this little warehouse area.
Oh, guys, Esther, come and look at this.
Yes,
Look.
dearie, coming.
I've got some more needles. Found some of those in a drawer. There's some very thin ones and some thicker ones. Ink pots are all dried out, but I've taken a couple of those. We'll get them cleaned out. They could be used again. Look at this. Look at all these bolts of fabric. There's everything in there, from silks to cottons to... We need to take something of each type, really. I mean, these are quite long, but we can stow them. We've got enough room on the ship.
I have these images of Otto not really joining you. He was very interested in those looms, and looms tend to have long stringy things attached to them, and trolls notably aren't very dexterous, so I imagine you might turn around and find him trying desperately to extricate himself without breaking the loom.
Yeah. Esther is... Oh yes, dearie, there's quite a lot here. It's oh, look at this, this is quite fashionable. And you see she pulls out a lurid orange tartan, which is quite vile in all honesty.
Yeah, I'm thinking more of things that we can create seating out of, cover things, drapes, anything that we can put in the ship, Let's just take something of each type, sort of a roll, a bolt with cotton and a bolt with something wool. We could make blankets or something out of those. I don't know. Elora's going to take sort of one of each sort of type of material. She can only carry so many and pull so many out, so
yeah. I'd say
something each.
You'd be able to get hold of one thick bolt of kind of like this soft grey, charcoal coloured wool-like material. You can probably get hold of a couple of bolts of cotton type material in fairly neutral colours, kind of greens and greys and browns. If you wanted to take a silk type material, there's a beautiful blue silk material which you can obviously take. And Esther will also pick out this kind of check coloured cotton as well. There's nothing super hardy here. It's obviously not where they make sails. It's obviously not that kind of textile process. They're obviously making clothing or fabric for clothing or for general homeware and goods. That's what's being produced here. And yes,
Okay.
As you turn around and start to ferry bits out, you can indeed see Otto tangled up in the strings of the loom. And you're able to extricate yourself with a bit of patience.
What are you doing in there, Otto?
Maybe we don't talk about this. I'm still getting used to things. Okay? It could have been worse. I could have been a bear.
Are any of these loom strings of any use?
Probably not any more, I'm guessing.
No good for tying things?
You just said they probably wouldn't have been much use in the first place because these loom strings aren't strings on the loom, they are actually woven, they are part of the fabric.
Gotcha.
Okay.
So where when you've got your loom, you put the fabric up and down, And then as you shift the loom, it obviously splits it so you can put the shuttle through, take it back down, split it the other way, shuttle through. And this is how the fabric's made, this mechanical up and in and out, like intersecting threads with this, obviously the weft running through. You wouldn't be able to salvage anything because they're just threads. There's no specific cords or kind of mechanical aspects that you could possibly take from this without obviously breaking it into pieces.
Okay, fine. Well, look, we've got some bolts, we've got some needles, a couple of ink pots. I can't see much else of use, so should we go next door, go down to the forge and see if there's anything?
Then, I guess.
I mean, tools. Yeah, tools is a good idea if we can get hold of something there.
Yeah. Is it just me or is she dropping in and out?
Good.
Yeah, she is, yeah.
You're dropping in and out?
Oh, am I?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's weird.
Disco's being a whiny little bitch tonight.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, tools would be useful. We've got all this stuff, but we're going to need tools to make things with, so let's go and see what they've got in the forge.
Good plan. I'll lead on, I guess.
Yeah, so we'll shuffle out.
Okay.
And follow Otto.
So your cart outside is steadily becoming full of bits and bobs. You've got these big bolts of fabric in there. You've got jars. You've got, it's a long way off from being full because this is a big kind of cart. But you are slowly, steadily filling it up with bits and bobs. Okay, so you make your way to the forge, and this is very much like a little kind of horseshoe shape area. So you've got this, there's almost like a central kind of wall or something. It's definitely not a structure, it's not a building, it's almost like a partition. And it's like a horseshoe, and both sides join together onto this main path. And you've gone round 3, so you've now passed the top of the horseshoe, and you're coming back round to the entrance on the right-hand side. And this is where you have the forge. And you can see this building is quite stout. And this is clearly a forge. It is made of stone rather than wood. Obviously, being around fire, bit of a fire hazard. It's got a tall... don't you get sassy with me. It's got a tall chimney. And you can see the chimney itself the top of it is stained with, obviously, soot has belched out and settled down the very slightly slanted sides. You can see by the side of it there is a almost like a rigged up contraption where you can see what used to be a very large set of bellows. And the bellows are attached mechanically. Obviously this up and down motion would have been powered through cogs and levers. And you imagine it would have been attached to a big kind of almost like a turntable, like a central kind of spoke where someone could push it, or you could rig a horse or a donkey or a mule up to it and gently encourage them round, which would pump and turn the bellows, obviously in turn providing oxygen to the fire inside. As you make your way in, this area is very clearly forge. There are buckets of water which have gone stale and nasty. They formed this kind of biofilm over the top, this black sooty biofilm which might possibly animate and attack you. It looks to be that kind of thick and nasty.
It identifies as George.
Yes, George the biofilm. You have tools of all sizes and shapes hanging from the sides and on the side of the walls. Clamps, hammers of varying sizes and heft and weight, and you've got some hammers which are tiny. They look like a tiny little mallet for the finest work, up to something which is the size of a sledgehammer for like the heaviest duty thrashing of metal. You have several anvils, again varying sizes, small ones, you've got big ones. There are boxes full of horseshoes, pre-made horseshoes obviously there, boxes and crates of nails in different sizes, and just general hardware. You can see a lot of things like hinges, metal fittings, ironwork. You can even see parts of what would be fence spikes where you would imagine you'd have perhaps a big noble house with big walls, and they want to put some nice wrought iron spiking on top of it for security. You can see stretches of spikes, like spiked panels, and this is very, very clearly obviously a forge. There's been active metalwork going on here. You can see metal filings and iron filings around on the floor, and the only thing that's protecting your feet here, Otto, really is your thick troll skin. As you step through, and these filings kind of embed themselves into your skin but do no damage. The forge is big. It's this big it's really the centerpiece of this place on the back wall. It is cold. There is no fire. There has been no fire here for years, but you can see the petrified coals and bags of coals with shovels and piles of them around the area, waiting to be shoveled in, essentially. You can see several pieces of weaponry. They are not the finest you have ever seen, but basic swords, basic daggers, basic maces, just very, very simple stuff. You can see some basic armours even. Not fine pieces of art by any stretch.
Okay. These weapons look usable.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine with some buffing and some polishing, you could get them back up to a nice shine, and yeah, they would be usable. They look straight when you look at the edges. The edges look unchipped, undamaged. They don't seem to be loose. The hilt and the guard are still strong. You know, there's nothing that would stop you from using these swords.
What do you think, Elora? Worth taking with us?
I'm not so interested in the weapons or the armour, but it might pay to take a couple of swords to just keep on the ship as spares. You never know. I mean, it might be worth taking a couple. I need cleaning up and sorting, but they look good enough.
Not thinking for us, but we did briefly discuss the possibility of maybe needing more hands on deck at some point.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one, and I was thinking along the same lines. Maybe just take, say 3 swords or something.
I'm wondering...
Why, were you thinking more?
I am, just in case. We don't want to have to arm a set of guards out of our own pockets. If we've got things here, we can...
Well, how many do you want to take then?
Well, many as we can. It doesn't hurt. And it's me doing the hauling around anyway. If I have to make a second trip, it's not the end of the world.
Well, grab 10 of those swords then. If there's 10 there, grab 10.
Grab 10.
Yeah, you can find 10 swords. They are varying different shapes and sizes. They are all standard sword though, but the designs vary, obviously. And I would say, if you wish to take some armour with you, you would be able to scrounge together from what is in this room. You would be able to scrounge together 3 sets of plate.
Ooh.
Again, you would have to do some maintenance on them. They'd have to be treated and polished, and the leather buckles would have to be potentially even replaced on some cases, but that wouldn't be too much of an issue with a basic armour set, armour care set. But yes, you'd be able to find basically 3 sets of plate. They wouldn't match. You'd have one greave different from the other greave, perhaps, but it's a set of armour, and in protection of your life, it doesn't really matter what it looks like.
No, that'd be a nice gift for someone.
So Elora would sort of say, right, grab Otto, grab 10 swords if there are 10, and as many sets of basic plate armour that you can put together. It looks like you might be able to scrounge about 3 there. She wants to... Esther?
Oh, yes, dearie, yes.
Can you grab... see if you can get hold of 10 clamps, like 5 sets of clamps, a selection of hammers, including a sledgehammer. We'll take something of everything. Maybe take I don't know, can we manage to take a small anvil, something useful to work on?
What about that bag of yours, Orland? Maybe he could eat the anvils for us for a bit?
I'm not taking the anvil. Sod off.
Yeah, that's it. You've had that.
I'll give you a watermelon.
Just put them in.
Why the fuck would I want a watermelon?
Well, I thought you might prefer the taste. If
I can't eat it. I'm a bag. I don't have a tongue. Shoes have tongues. I don't. I'm a bag.
yes, I can see that. So why not the anvil?
Look at it. It's massive. It's sharp. It's got a pointy end. I'm not taking it. It will stretch my seams.
They've put swords in you before.
And I'm not taking the anvil.
You're a bit bloody obstinate, aren't you?
You try and put that on me. I'm spitting it right back on your foot, fatso.
Laura's really going to
Who's
laugh.
talking? Have you seen your waistline?
I don't have a waist. I'm a bag.
I don't know. Looking a bit bedazzled around that edge, aren't you?
Oh, you bastard! You're asking for it. You
Bagstead. Sorry, what was that?
Okay, everybody just calm
Go fuck
down.
yourself.
Everybody calm down, everybody. This is all too much. Like, we're here to get some bits. Let's not get all upset with each other. Right. Elora's just going to start grabbing as many boxes of nails. Probably, see, she's going to get like 10 big boxes of nails of as many different sizes as she can.
Yeah, you can get several crates of nails. You can get several hammers. General implements you can take as much as you want of. Orland will take some bits, but obviously he's not going to take anything too heavy, as previously explained.
No, she'll take some sets of hinges and some hinges. She'll take some nails. She'll take small hammers, small wooden the small wooden mallets, things like that. The small stuff she's going to ask Orland to put them in, and everything else like that. Guys, do you want to? Let's take a bag of coal. Get a bag of coal into there. In fact, if we can get two, get a couple into the car.
For sure. The other thing is that actually Otto will pick up some anvils and will transport them outside to the cart, the smaller ones.
Okay.
Because it occurs to me that falling anvils, though might be an Acme comedy thing, actually may carry some weight.
I'm going to say there are several anvils in this workshop, but there aren't loads and loads and loads. Clearly, this would have been staffed by maybe 2 or 3 blacksmiths, no more. I'd say there's probably 2 very big ones which would be hard to transport, but there are probably 3 small ones. And when I say small, I mean you would be able to carry them. A human would be able to carry them, just about. They would have to be a beefy human, but they would be able to carry them. You could take those 3 small anvils.
For sure. And I'll take those daggers as well. I'm not so worried about the maces.
Yeah.
But
Cool. None of this, what I will say is none of these swords or daggers are silvered. None of the weapons are silvered. They are just basic iron steel weaponry. What I would like you to do, however, is both of you, I want you to make me a search check, please.
That's a flat 16 for
so
Elora.
that's
Okay.
a 4. It's actually a +3 on the search, so 7 in total.
As Esther rejoined the group, they made tracks toward the trade end of town, seeking anything useful or salvageable. The crafting quarter was the gift that kept on giving, with a leatherworkers, textile and pottery workshops, and a blacksmith's. There was plenty of places for our party to pilfer from. Much was reclaimed, from a large selection of trade and general tools to weaponry, armour and fine fabrics, plus a little unexpected coin to cap things off. As we take leave, our heroes are still not yet done. What else will they find, we wonder? Well, we can't wait to share that with you in next week's episode of The Secrets of the Silver City. Hey, you made it this far, so lend us your ears for a moment longer if you will. Firstly, we are most humbled that you are enjoying our yarn, and the crew thank you from the bottom of their hearts for your patronage. Producing this podcast is incredibly hard work, and as such, if you would like to support us, there are a few ways in which you could really make a difference. Sharing links to friends and family helps to spread the word so others like you can find us, and in turn they too can enjoy the show. Equally helpful is leaving a 5-star review on Spotify and any other streaming services, which will help us immensely. Or, if you feel you could go that extra mile and contribute a few coppers to keep our creative juices flowing, you can hop on over to our Buy Me a Coffee page or drop us an email. We would all be immensely grateful for your support in any form. Lastly, we invite you to visit our website, where you will find information on our campaign From Backstories to Settings. Join our Facebook group or follow us on Twitter. All the links are in our episode bios. Don't forget to smash the subscribe and download buttons so you never miss the next episode. See you all again next week, folks.
Thank you for listening to our podcast. Having you as a listener means everything to us. So, whichever streaming service you choose to listen to us with, please give us a like, subscribe and follow. We would love for you to join us on our Facebook or Twitter page, where you can catch up with all of our latest news. While you're waiting for the next episode of Secrets of the Silver City, why not pop over to our website, where you can read all of the information about this campaign, from backstories to setting. All of the links are in the bio of this episode. Join us again next week for the next instalment. Thank you for listening.